My, oh my, what a weekend of rugby. We had everything. We had all of the top domestic leagues going on. We had some sevens going on. We had titles being given in Japan, and we had semi-finals, playoff action. We had it all this weekend, and we are going to be covering everything that happened this weekend. So you're going to need some food and a snack for this one. So go grab yourself a little snack, a drink, and come back and join us as we break down everything that happened this weekend in the world of rugby. Right, let's start with the Premiership where Harlequins beat Northampton. So that's it. We're done, lads. Good work. All jokes aside, though, it is the most Quincy finish to the season. Obviously, at home to Saints, who they did rotate a lot, which obviously we'll talk about what that means going into the semi-finals. But Quins put on a good performance as they said goodbye to the likes of Nick Evans in coaching, Stephen Louise, Tom Lauderdale obviously scoring with his last play as well. So a great finish to the end of Quins' season, but at the same time, very disappointing for them as Gloucester got the points they needed against Newcastle, which we kind of knew they would. So Gloucester go into the Champions Cup for next year, and it means that Quins and Newcastle will be in the Challenge Cup. Now, obviously, the salary cap report came out a couple of weeks ago, and Quins are one of the top spenders in the Prem, believe it or not. So although they're saying goodbye to a lot of 15 to 20 odd players this year, that's still a massive loss of income that's going to come next year because they're not in the Champions Cup. And of course, even in the Challenge Cup, like it's not like the fans are massively going to get behind the club. So yeah, look, bottom of the table is an interesting one. Just above them, Sale, really, really disappointing season. Obviously, a great finish against Bristol, but, you know, you'd have to say Sale would expect to do a lot better after last year. And same as Bristol, you know, Bristol have had so many injuries this year, but especially at the beginning of the season, you know, they lost McGinty and Randall and Ibatwe, but they were still there or thereabouts in the top four for, you know, pretty much the first half of the season, obviously beating Quins at Christmas time as well. And it was like, right, Bristol going to be there or thereabouts. And then second half of the season just imploded. So, you know, basically from 6 down, pretty disappointing seasons for everyone. Newcastle obviously will want to rebuild for next year. They've got loads. I mean, Newcastle's list of players exiting is even bigger than Quins. So, yeah, I'd say from 6 down to 10, pretty disappointing. And although there's a lot of change happening with coaches and players coming in and out, they're still going to have to review the season and go, look, we need to learn from it. So that's that part of the table done. But upwards, oh my God. Saracens versus Exeter at Sandy Park. Now, we knew this one was going to be spicy and it was tipped to be the game that we wanted to watch this weekend. And look, I really thought Saris could do it. Obviously, they just run out of steam. And that big momentum shift before half-time where they conceded back-to-back penalties and Henry Slade kicked them up the pitch, yellow card to Bracken, and then they obviously did a front peel at the line-out to score. So go ahead at half-time. And then in the second half, Henry Slade looks like he's just rolling back the years, like cauliflower ear and all. He played fantastically. And not just him, Varney at 9. I mean, between him and, you know, you have to say Skinner as well. What a great combination they've been. So they secured they secured third place. They didn't realise at the time, but obviously at the Bath Leicester game, Leicester had a chance to draw it. Bailey hits the post with his last conversion. Bath end up winning and getting a home semi-final. And then obviously we mentioned about Northampton rotating. So for their semi-final next week, you expect everyone to be nice and fresh. So looking at semi-finals next week, Saints will be at home to Leicester. Massive game. Like, look, Northampton at home are fantastic. And we know that Leicester on their day, you know, they play with such passion and led by Chesham are so good. If Billy Searle's fit and available to play, then, you know, they know that they can beat Northampton. But Northampton at home, you probably have to say they're favourites. And then in the other game, obviously Exeter getting third means that they're going away to Bath. And again, it's going to be a tough one. Talks of whether Finn Russell was available or not. He's obviously missed the last couple of games. But when you're playing against someone as strong as Thomas du Toit, a prop getting a hat-trick, I mean, what else is there to say about that? You have to just give him his props. Get it? But that's a massive game for Exeter. And you'd think that on their day, if everyone is firing, Zamboni in the line-out has been so good. No Faye Boso, it looks like, but Brown Pampo's been playing really well. Lots of talk when they let Josh Hodge go earlier on in the season, but Riddle's been playing really well as well. So, and of course, the two Aussie boys that have come, Hooper and Ikitau. Ikitau obviously had some injuries throughout the year, but Hooper, I don't know if you've seen the video, we reshared it on X, like that side step he put on, I think it was Rio Dan's ankles he broke. Like, they've both been such good additions for this Exeter side. So you've got two massive games next week, one on Friday night, which will be awesome. Obviously, we'll get one on Saturday. And then we'll see who's going to be going to Allianz Twickenham for the Prem final. Over in the URC, now we're going to be breaking down these games in another video with our South African colleagues, but let's just go through the two semi-finals, because obviously you had Glasgow at Murrayfield against the Bulls, and early on it looked like Glasgow were going to run away with it. Their attack was firing. Pollard got a yellow card. Bulls then got another yellow card. All of a sudden it's 21-3 to Glasgow, and you're like, man, this is going to be, you know, as one-sided as the Super Rugby games have been in the quarterfinals. But the thing is about the Bulls is they have so many big players that have been there and done it, and their power game up front, like we saw scrum penalties, we saw driving mauls, we saw their pick and go power. But you'd have to say Glasgow just fumbled the bag here. Like, it's a semi-final at Murrayfield. You've got the crowd behind you. It's not like everyone flew over from Pretoria for the game either. And you're 21-3 up. Oh, Bulls get a score, and you're like, okay, surely they've got enough. Glasgow didn't get a point in the second half. Like, at the beginning of the season, up until Christmas, I was tipping them. I was like, that, you know, going well in the league. Obviously, Devon Stormers were top. I mentioned it in the preview, 4 from 4 in the Champions Cup. I thought Scotland were going to have a really good Six Nations. But then it's just like, lost a few games in the URC, lost momentum, lost to Toulon in the Champions Cup. Obviously, Scotland had a few results that didn't go their way in the Six Nations. You just go, what's just happened? Like, on paper, it's almost a full international team. And, you know, I heard on Rugby Union Weekly this morning, they were talking about the lack of a world-class 9 and 10, which obviously when you get to this stage of the season, you're playing against, you know, Pollard, who's a double World Cup winning. He's unbelievable in these tight games and these moments. So, yeah, look, Glasgow will be massively disappointed. Stain came out afterwards and obviously said how disappointed he was. But yeah, look, you have to think that that's definitely one that got away from Glasgow. And then in the other game, Leinster versus Stormers. Now, this game was a real tight one, and it was almost like similar to a test match. At one point, Farico's score for Leinster, like, you looked at the shape that Leinster were playing, and it was like, okay, that's the attacking shape that Leinster and Ireland have been doing, that were cutting teams apart. And there was just so many runners at the line, and the ball can either go to the front or at the back. And Rico runs in like almost unscathed, and you're like, okay, right, Leinster are on fire here. And I must say, I'm going to try and find the clip. There was one point from a line out where they actually had Josh van der Fleer in as the receiver from the line out. They then had Given Parker at first receiver, and then they had Sam Prendergast out the back. And you're like, man, Josh van der Fleer's just thrown like a 30-meter pass from the line out. Like, they were on. And then you saw the little scuffle at half time. Like, Doris and Clarkson were not scared to get into anyone's face either. So, but Leinster obviously had a real bit about them, a little chip on the shoulder from the Champions Cup. And, you know, they've got one game left of the season, and it is the final of the URC. Obviously, it's going to be at Croke Park against the Bulls. Obviously, there's a 2-week gap now for the URC final as well. Bulls get a chance to go home. But, man, this is, you'd have to say Leinster have got home advantage. Not a lot of fans. I think it was between 10 and 15,000 in Aviva. Obviously, the fans have been going there all season that we've obviously spoke about before. But you'd imagine that all the Dubliners will get out for this game and go to Croke Park. And hopefully a couple of South Africans will go, especially the South Africans that are in, you know, London as well, especially get them over. So, look, massive one in the URC final in a couple of weeks. But as I said, we'll go into these games a little bit later on. Right, Super Rugby. I've given Tom Hooper and Lenny Cattell my all of my Australian props for this one. But other than that, what to say? Like, the Brumbies against Hurricanes on their day. I said it like to a friend over the phone during the game. they would have beaten anyone, whether it was Crusaders or Chiefs. I think the way Canes played in the rain, they would have beaten anyone on the weekend. But Brumbies just looked like they didn't want it, and I think it's hard when you finish outside the top four to still get motivated in this really weird system where, lucky loser and will go on to Blues getting through even though they lost. But Brumbies just didn't have a great game. The likes of Valentini just didn't show up, and it's such a shame. It has been a long season for them, I know, but you just wanted a little bit more. So that was one side of it. In the other game, the Reds, you saw how disappointed McWright was at the end of the game, and for Harry Wilson as well. But I just think, not even on paper, throughout the season, the New Zealand teams as a collective have obviously been better, but they have lost when they've been away in Australia. And obviously, because the Australian teams didn't finish in the top four, they had to go away. And this whole season, the Australian team's away record, I mean, I mentioned it on the breakdown, has been so poor, and it's been trending downwards for the last few years as well. So lots of talk about what's happening with Super Rugby based on this playoff system. And again, if we're going to the Crusaders Blues game, Blues had a horrendous end to the season. That's one point. You finish fourth, you then lose, but then all of a sudden you're through to a semi-final. It's like, what? Now, look, they have to obviously go away next week to Wellington to play Hurricanes, which a miracle. And I'm saying it out there. This might be one of the biggest upsets of the season if they pull it off at this point, because Hurricanes just look phenomenal. And, when the teams came out from, I think it was almost from number 5, you had Stearns, then you had Shields, you had the back row, Roygaard, Love, Geordie, Proctor. They're all just playing so well. And again, I put it out on X, which caused a little bit of a stir. When you look at the Chiefs 9 and 10, Cortez Ratimer had a really good game, and obviously DMAC at 10 or 15, you kind of need DMAC on the park. I think he's been so good. Obviously, come back from concussion, couple of tries, good kicking, really led the Chiefs around. But you've got Ratimer and DMAC, and then you've got Roygaard and Love. You could easily play either of those 9 and 10s for the All Blacks. And again, the argument is probably don't mix and match them. If you're gonna play Love, then I play Roygaard and vice versa. So yeah, look, Super Rugby, obviously the semi-finals, we've got Chiefs versus Crusaders, which again will be a massive game. Crusaders have had the edge on the Chiefs, especially when it comes to finals time. Crusaders and playoff footy, they know how to win these big games. But Chiefs have been the bridesmaid this many times that you'd like to think that they've learned enough, and they've been playing well all season. So massive games next weekend in Super Rugby. Right, I've said it too many times now. I'm sure people are fed up with me saying it. If you don't already watch Top 14, pull your finger out, get onto allthingsrugby.com, download the rugby app, and get some French rugby in you. Anyone can beat anyone, and we saw it this weekend. Right, so Bordeaux, the best team in Europe, Champions Cup winners by a clear, undefeated 2 years in European rugby in the EPCR, failed to qualify for the playoffs in the top 14. What the fuck? Clermont have had a good season. Harry Plummer, who came over from the Blues when he was younger, he had a sabbatical over at Queens as well when him and Joe Marchant switched. Man, he's come over to Clermont, who have underperformed the last couple of years from the giants that they were in Europe. But last player of the game wins it with a drop kick, and you're just like, oh my God. And Bill Berry came out afterwards and was like, yeah, horrendous for the fans, massively disappointed. They're walking away with a back-to-back Champions Cup seasons, and then you're like, shit, didn't even qualify for the playoffs in the top 14, which is wild. But again, Poe, Montpellier being there, have had such good seasons. Poe absolutely stuck it on Montauban, which obviously will go down next year. And we had the Pro de Deux, just to mention the Pro de Deux final as well, Vannes versus Provence. Vannes won, great game, back and forward. Looked like Provence had got back in the games, 4-point game near the end. But Provence will now be playing Perpignan in the access match. And the interesting one about that is at Provence as well. So Perpignan have to not only fight to stay up, but they have to go away for it as well. So that's definite match you don't want to miss. Elsewhere, Racing 92 made their way into the playoffs, and they are joined by Ronan O'Gara's at La Rochelle, who, you know, it was only earlier on in the season we were all sitting here mugging them off after they lost 5 in a row. But what an end to the season. I think they won like 8 out of the last 9 matches to qualify. So massive shout out to them. The way they do the playoffs, Toulouse and Montpellier will have a break next week, and then you've got the semi-finals, which will be Stade Francais versus La Rochelle, and then you've got Pau versus Racing. Again, 2 great games. Winners will go on to then face Toulouse and Montpellier. Who wins? As it's France, you'd have to go with the home sides, but again, this season has been wild in the top 14, so anything can happen, and you do not want to miss what's coming. And then over in Japan, we had the final of the Japan League One, and it was the Steelers. It was Artie Surveyors and Brody Retalix and Anton Lennon-Brown and Dave Rennie's Steelers who come away with the title in Japan, and Brody Retalix finishing as top try scorer as well. And Dave Rennie was saying afterwards, obviously he'd love to bring Retalix back and get him back into that All Black system. And this sabbatical works really well for the Kiwis and for the South Africans as well. Like, that league has been getting better and better. And obviously you've got the Division 2 and the third league getting better. You've got the likes of Marnie Libok, who's playing over there, who, you know, he's got Quay Cooper and Will Genya as coaches. Then you've got Noah Liaso, who went over in Division 1 over in Japan. So look, Japanese rugby, you don't want to sleep on. There is so many good games happening out there. The talent, even the international talent's great, but all the youngsters coming through as well. And for every bit of stick that Eddie Jones gets, he's brought through so many youngsters into that Japanese system. He's brought through university players. Man, Japan, they're going to be there or thereabouts. Like, you have to think that they're going to get a few scalps coming up in the Nation Championship. So, look, great end to the season. Really interesting now to see with Rennie going back to the All Blacks, if he brings a few of them over. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about Richie Mwanga, but you've got so many players over there, whether it's Shannon Frizzell, who looks like he's going to be going back into the system. As we mentioned, Ardy, Anton, I mean, the amount of centres that we saw this weekend. David Havili looks so good in that 12 jersey, but then not to be outdone by Geordie and Proctor. Anton Lennon-Brown still going well. Quinn Sapai is obviously through to a semi-final. Rico just scored on the weekend. There's so many that they could pick from in the All Blacks. The Dave Rennie's got such a big selection call on his hands. And speaking of selection calls, we will be breaking down that Springbok 50-man squad as well in another video. So keep your eyes out for that one. And just a few other bits. Obviously, we saw this weekend over in Bordeaux, the Sevens, USA men's Sevens managed to get a win and get back into Sevens 1 next year, which is awesome for them. Unfortunately, it is at the expense of Kenya, but the Kenya fans show up so well, and there's talks that Sevens 2 will be going back to Kenya next year as well. So hopefully they'll get a massive turnout there and get some more investment, get some more funding into that Kenyan team, because everyone wants to be there on the circuit. If you're a fan, you want to get up to Kenya Corner, and they're just great to watch as well. So lots going on in the Sevens. On the women's side, the Australians managed to just capitalise on their win against New Zealand last week and finish as world champions. So massive shout out to them. Blitzbox on the other side. We can talk about South African rugby over and over again, but we'll break that down in another video. But massive shout out to the Australian women's side as well in the Sevens. And then the last bit, Chicago Hounds over in the MLR finished the whole season undefeated, which leaves them, as we mentioned last week, in really good position going into the semis and then to take the MLR title. Oh, that was a lot of rugby. We watched rugby for 3 days straight, basically, in my house. And hopefully we're going to do the same again this week. But there's a little bit less rugby to watch. There's a break in URC. Sevens is obviously finished. So make sure you stay tuned to everything that's happening in the rugby world, either on allthingsrugby.com or download the rugby app. And if you haven't already, get over there, check the highlights from these games, because you want to see what's going to be happening next weekend in the semi-finals and the playoffs across the board. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Shanair, and this has been All Things Rugby.